Welcome, everybody. This is the Ends Justify the Memes, the show where the lowest of the low, that is, the most wretched of wretched, this is, and deplorable, to end all deplorables, two heterosexual Christian males from the American South. White, that is, two white males. Gotta remember that part. We talk about culture, philosophy, history, fitness, and what it means to be a man in the 21st century. I'll be your host, Bill, and this is my co-host, Tank. So, crack open a beer and lend us your ear because the ends always justify the memes.
Woo!
How do I screw up my own intro? I wrote that. I have it on screen.
Oh, it's all right.
Yeah, I know. How are we doing tonight, Tank? Even though we've been chatting for a bit.
Oh, I'm doing pretty good over here. Just drink a little scotch, eat a little bit of pepperoni.
Yeah, I guess you can have the scotch on the ketos. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you can. Supposedly, drinking alcohol at all will kick you out of ketosis, but I believe that that's fake news, so I don't pay attention to it.
Well, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm kind of a diet guru. When your body is burning alcohol, you're not burning any other form of calories. Let that be a lesson to you, though, when they tell you that carbohydrates are the preferred fuel source for your body. If that is true, then alcohol is actually the preferred fuel source because it's the first thing your body's going to burn. The truth is they're basically both poisonous in the body, you know?
Yeah.
But they make you feel good. They make you feel good. All right, man, let's do some memecast news.
Let's do it. We are now memecasting.
We are memecasting today in the memecast news. This artist has got to be the best, man. Every week he's got something great. So, if you hadn't heard, Joe Rogan talking to Tim Kennedy, talking about having Biden and Trump on, and that would be awesome. So this guy put it, all right, gentlemen, we hydrated, caffeinated, ready to begin our 4-hour debate, and of course, Trump looking quite well. Joe's sweating a little bit, and old Sleepy Creepy is doing his thing. By the way, hashtag on Twitter, Joe must show. Joe must show. Donald Trump said he would do this. He said he would be on the Rogan podcast.
Oh my God. That I can only hope that that's going to be the case. That's going to be fantastic. He won't, though. There's no way. He's not that stupid. There's no way he would do that.
Biden won't even take questions from the press, man, and neither will Harris. It's sick. It's absolutely insane. Let's see. Let's get the next one up. This is all, these are Biden memes, folks. This is the news in Biden. And it says, find someone who kisses the way Joe Biden kisses his granddaughter.
Ooh, yeah, that's a little, I don't know anyone's family who's that close.
I mean, if you're like Italian or something, maybe you live in the old world, certain parts. That's not very American. Biden can make whatever excuses he wants.
Even if I was that close with my family, I don't think I would, if I was running for president, I would put myself on the news like this. This is a little, ugh.
Well, Right Wing Watch had exposed that he had an altercation with a Secret Service member because he groped his girlfriend or his wife or something like that.
Ooh.
And according to Dan Bongino, this was a common occurrence that the Secret Service members knew to keep their ladies away from the vice president. So there's that. I was watching Fleckus Talks a little bit right before we started, and he was interviewing Biden. I wouldn't call them protesters, but whatever. Biden street campaigners, just people out in the street holding the sign saying, yeah, go Joe Biden. And he asked one of them about the accusations of Tara Reid, and he goes, I don't know anything about that. I never heard anything about that. Wonder why. Anyways, next one says, but I have candy in my car. No, I'm still voting Trump. Hey, Trump in polling's got almost 30% of the black vote if they go out and vote. My wife told me today that 45% of gay males will be voting for Trump in a recent poll. So that's interesting. I wonder, I really do wonder how fake the news is going to be proven to be fake and how fake the polls are going to be. Or,
Yeah.
that red mirage thing.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna be something else for sure. Now is that actually the black vote or just the black approval rating?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not the black vote because, well, one
Okay.
thing, like, Kimberly Klasick was on the Timcast IRL last week,
Yeah.
and she's the lady from Baltimore that went through the streets and had the very viral campaign ad. I've worked in Baltimore plenty of times in my life. I can tell you it's mostly bad. It's mostly ghetto, a lot of dilapidated houses. I haven't been there in a while, but supposedly, according to her, the Inner Harbor is completely gone. The Inner Harbor was the nice part
Right.
as far as downtown Baltimore goes. You could go visit there. The National Aquarium's there. Uh, lots of stuff. But she's a black lady, and she went into some of these impoverished neighborhoods, and we're saying that a lot of these people weren't even registered to vote,
Yeah.
and they never met a Republican before because Republicans are idiots and just give that voting block to the Democrats. It's just assumed. It's almost like they have a little treaty between the two. Oh, you stay out of our neighborhoods. We'll just stay with the upper middle class and the rich suburbanites and the rednecks. That'll be the Republican sector, and everybody else the Democrats will get. You know?
Wow. Yeah, she was a good interview on Timcast. I like seeing her on there. I never heard of her before until that night or when she came on.
Well, I've known about her, but I'm
Yeah.
no longer a Marylander, but I'm still nearby, so I also stay pretty aware about most things. Try to at least. She's I thought she reminded me though. She looked like Shoe on Head, the YouTuber.
Yeah.
She looked like a black version of Shoe on Head to me. I was like, I don't know. I told my wife, I said, man, she's really pretty. She kind of looks like Shoe on Head though. It's kind of weird. In any case, next meme. I've had this one sitting around for a while, but old Biden talking to his best friend. I went to the petting zoo yesterday. That was an elementary school, Joe.
So what's your take on this? Because people are saying, that Joe Biden's like actually senile, and some people are saying he's not actually senile. He just has a stutter or some stuff. What do you think?
Well, I encourage everyone to go back in history, back in time, to a time about, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months ago, where Jimmy Dore did a whole episode on Joe Biden, or say a whole segment on Joe Biden's lies. He is a plagiarist. He's been caught plagiarizing from early on in his career. He lied about his standing in his university class. But no matter what, Joe Biden spoke well enough.
Right.
He didn't do the stuttering. He didn't do the thing he does now. The guy's had like 2 brain aneurysms. He is old. He's demented. I think he's sundowns. There's a reason why he is not out front. I mean, I stutter. I'm not the most eloquent all the time. I tell you, most of the time that I do that, though, like my blood sugar is low or something like that, or I've had too many of these guys. But I honestly think the guy's 80 years old. I honestly think he's demented. He's always been an idiot. He's always been a jackass. I mean, he has said in the past, he's always been very, very bigoted too. He said in the past, he didn't want school integration because he thought that the schools would become jungles.
God.
So
Oh my God.
yeah. That's a direct quote. You can look this stuff up.
Mm.
I would not misquote such things, as much as I like making fun of Joe. All right, let's get this last Joe meme up. My mama always said life is like a box of, the thing.
You know the thing.
The thing. All right, we got some leftist memes here. So, first one, when arsonists set fire in a city, peaceful protest. In a forest, it's climate change.
Ooh. Yeah, so I just kind of caught this in passing, but so apparently some guy set some fires to some trees out in the, west or whatever. And then some government agency denied that leftists had anything to do with it, and then they found out that they did. Was that what happened?
I'm not sure about that. There
Okay.
were a few arsonists found, but I would
Okay.
say generally that there are probably arsonists and they are probably on the left when it happens and these wildfires. By the way, folks, we are going to be talking about environmentalism tonight, so we'll probably be covering this some more. Um, excuse me, but there was a sheriff's deputy who mentioned something about it, and he was caught on tape or on video, and he got in some trouble. And Facebook is banning anyone saying that left wingers are lighting these fires on purpose. So, lo and behold, Facebook covering for the left once again. But I think the majority of them are just a natural process that happens every year. It's like the hurricanes. We know this is hurricane season, happens every year, and I want the climate people, the ones who are hysterical about it, because I'm not denying any sort of Earth climate change stuff, because the Earth goes through cycles.
Right.
But I want them to explain why the hurricanes we've had so far this year have been rather mild and rather weak, and why here on the West Coast, or sorry, the East Coast, at least in my area, it feels like fall. This is the first September I can remember in years where it's like already cool outside.
Right.
It was down to like 45 degrees last night, man.
Mm.
I don't know about your neck of the woods, but
It's been getting chillier for sure.
yeah. Well, you're
Yeah.
a little bit further south than I am,
Yeah.
but I mean, usually August is the muggiest, hottest month around
Mhm.
here, and August was not that bad.
No, it definitely was not that bad. And even I think this morning I actually turned my heat on my car. So it's been a little strange year for sure.
Yeah, I walked out to get a stogie the other night, and I was like, I gotta get a jacket. This is ridiculous. And I'm like, it's got to be like 40 degrees out. It can't be in the 50s. And sure enough, I looked at my phone. It was 48, and before I
Mm.
went to bed, it was like 45.
Mm.
So I'm pretty close to getting the turning on the heat here, but probably not yet because I enjoy the chill.
Right.
Let's get into let's get to this next meme. This whatever this is. The only Nazis, or sorry, the only thing Nazis will see are my fists. I doubt it.
All right, so
That might be Butterbean though. That might be Butterbean. I don't know. He might have transitioned. I have no clue.
he left Pride and started transitioning. You know what it looks like to me is I'm about to age myself here. Do you remember the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Of course I do, man.
Okay.
And in fact, you were like way littler than I was when that came out. I
So-
was like in fifth. I don't even think I was in fifth grade yet, but yeah. Anyways,
So do you remember Rocksteady and Bebop?
yes, of course.
This one looks like Bebop, the pig guy.
Tank, I'm so old. I remember playing with the toys.
I had a few of them. Yeah.
But I had a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I left most of my stuff with my ex-wife, or before that, I had
Oh.
them with a buddy of mine. Because by the time I was in middle school, or at least I think in sixth grade, we played with a lot of toys still. But by seventh and eighth grade, it just wasn't very interesting anymore.
Right.
Um, But my buddy had all these GI Joes. I had all kinds of GI Joes. I had all kinds of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys. They had really cool toys. I had a bunch of Star Trek toys too. They had some pretty cool
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek toys. Had Jean-Luc Picard Locutus toy
Heck yeah.
and Gowron with his batleth.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
All right, next one. Next meme. So the SJW who is glowing, join us. Someone says, pray with us. And then there's a rainbow. We are love. We are kindness. We are peace. Yeah,
Oh
they
man.
sure are.
Yeah, it looks like the old riots have having a little bit of effect on the polling now, though. So
Well, there could be the deputizing the state police in Portland that kind of quelled that. But Lancaster did a good job. Talked about this today on All Minus One. Ah, All
first
Minus One, guys, my YouTube channel.
First
This is
plug.
yeah, that's right, first blog. This is the live show. So YouTube channel, try to put out content at least 3 days or 3 times a week, about an hour long or so, sometimes a little bit shorter. So delve into subjects I like talking about, mostly from a classically liberal perspective. And I've been doing a new little segment called Quick Shots, which is me braining for about 5-10 minutes max. And I did a quick shot today about that, or covered it at least. Lancaster decided they were going to lock the agitators up and put them under $1 million bail. And that is how you do it, folks. You don't release them the next day. That's how you stop riots. All right, let's go to the new Netflix series. So, Puppy Murder, new 2020, watch now. In this provocative film, the director just literally murders puppies to teach you that murdering puppies is bad. Powerful.
Wow,
Oh,
that's a cute dog too.
yeah, well, cuties, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, I did a little thing on that too, because man, there's some sick guy on YouTube talking about that. Ugh. Anyways, this did bring to mind, if you guys are interested in a really cool Netflix documentary, if you still have Netflix, um, it's called Don't F with Cats. And it's about this guy that was fantasizing about being a serial killer, made up this whole persona of himself on social media, and he killed kittens online,
Ooh.
or don't F with kittens, something like that. Um, and he killed these kittens online, and these internet sleuths went after him, found out who he was, and all this stuff, and he eventually murdered somebody in a literal real snuff film,
Ooh.
and posted it online. And they found him because of the work that these people did on the internet for about 2 or 3 years, all because he killed a kitten and put it online. And he did a couple crazy things. I forget if he drowned them or suffocated them, but one of the things he did was feed them to a boa constrictor.
Oh.
And yeah. So yeah, it's sick and whatever else, but I'm an adult, and I mean, I've seen people shot in the face before, so I can deal with that stuff. But if you guys like Tiger King, go watch that.
Ugh.
So, next one. QAnon targets pedophiles, sex traffickers, and Satanists. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the mainstream media target QAnon. It is making is it making sense to you now? This is interesting because I'm not a Q guy. But I don't, from what I understand of Q, I think it's probably just someone LARPing, like
Yeah.
literally. But from what I understand of Q though, like it is literally nothing but saying, "Oh, we're just exposing a deep state, blah 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 blah," and people are going around the media trying to say, "Oh, Q kills more people, this and that and the other." And I saw someone running for a congressional seat or something like that. I forget who it was who did a poll on Twitter, and I'm not really on Twitter, guys. Like I get on there to get news sometimes, but not like for any other reason really. But put up a poll: is Antifa more dangerous or QAnon? And it was like 90% Antifa. And she was like, the next comment was like, her comment afterwards, like, oh, I see we got a bunch of right-wing trolls in here. It's like, okay. So you got any takes on Q there, Tank?
I don't really pay a lot of attention to it. I've seen some people talk on Gab about it. One guy claims that it is a hoax and claims that he's part of it. But I've not really looked into like what they actually say. I've just seen people say, "Oh, this is a QAnon conspiracy theory," but I'm not. I'm not the kind of person that. Well, not anymore. I'm not the kind of person that looks at conspiracy theory and just automatically says that it's got to be wrong because of conspiracy theory. So I don't know. Like I've said before, a lot of things that are conspiracy theories I might not necessarily believe, but I wouldn't be surprised either.
Well, I think the biggest thing with Q to me is I see a lot of people talk about it on a lot of alternate media type podcasts. Like, quite frankly, for instance, a lot of his people, if you talk with them in Discord, I've had a few conversations with people over a live mic, and they're like, well, are you in the queue or anything? And I'm like, no. I'm like, I pretty much think it's nonsense. I could probably do all the same stuff myself, pretend like I'm feeding you information.
Right.
Uh, Devin Stack of Black Pill did a video. I think it was only a BitChute video, but I might be wrong. It might be on YouTube, where he basically talked about QAnon people as if they were being fed a drug, if they were addicted to a drug,
Right.
which I think is an interesting take. But
yeah, I don't know. It like, conspiracy theories are conspiracy theories. They are what they are. But I think a lot of people want to slap this QAnon on something to automatically discredit something. Which is just what they do. It's kind of weird now because people have been convicted of conspiracy. It's not like conspiracy theories don't happen, but it's weird that we live in this like in 2020, if something's considered a conspiracy theory, that automatically means it's wrong. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing.
Well, it's that whole thing we talked about in our I guess it was our first official stream that wasn't canceled. It wasn't it wasn't pulled, but we talked about Mulbug and who controls the narrative.
Right.
And I like to fondly point out that the left likes to talk about things like institutional racism and oppression, and it's like, well, who owns the institutions? Well, the media is left wing, the
Right.
majority of it. Hollywood's left wing, so entertainment. So is the music industry, unless you get into country music. But I don't personally like country music, but it's whatever. So then you have academia. Well, that's left wing. Then you have the largest political party in the world, the Democratic Party of America. They're obviously left wing. They have more voters than anybody. What do you mean institutional?
Right.
Because it's you and your people that own the institutions. So I don't know. And that kind of brings me to the next one, human evolution of 2020. We all just become sheeple. Wear your mask, folks.
I like this. I like the middle guy, the human dude. How he's like all jacked and bent over.
That's gonna be me.
Yeah, just jacked with bad posture.
I had that posture for a little bit because my hip, but yeah, I think not. I mean, I didn't even realize my posture was that way, but I see myself later on film, and I'm like, oh, I'm walking like an old man. I need to fix that.
It's ridiculous. Like I'm in the process of trying to fix mine, but it gets out of whack so easy if you don't. One, like I've been a lazy fuck and not working out, so it's got something to do with it. But spend so much time looking at screens, and we're going to be talking about environmentalism later, so this will come up again. But we spend so much time looking at screens and down at stuff that we've wrecked ourselves. It's rough.
Yeah, I think a lot of mine was military. I did um 8-hour shifts, 7 days a week for 2 years straight. Well, I shouldn't say that because I had we would rotate shifts, and we did have different posts. And I also had a training week, and obviously time off, liberty as it's called in the military, in the Marine Corps. Um, but I was wearing, 30 pounds of gear, had a sidearm as well as a M16 with a 100 round loadout, and a radio, and a tack vest, um, and a 2 liter Camelback, and all that weighs on you. You walk around with that for 8 hours, and then later on, when I was in the fleet in the infantry, you're carrying your house on your back. When I was in Iraq, my my platoon commander, who would normally be a lieutenant, but we didn't have one at the time for that position, was a staff sergeant, and he was a big dude, and he was like, I don't know, 6'3", 6'4". He's pretty jacked. I mean, he wasn't like
Mm.
skinny, but he wasn't like super bulky. So it was like one of those guys that's like filled out in between, but he like weighed 100 or 230 pounds or more, and we had to help him get his pack on. Like everybody did. We were hauling around over 100 pounds on our back easily, probably 150 pounds. And then on top of that, you have your regular gear loadout, which is probably about 60 pounds. And, if you're a saw gunner, which I carried when I was in infantry training school, I thought because they were picking on me for being a little guy, but I later found out it's because I just happened to be one of the better people, one of the better shots during the saw qual.
Right.
It's all about walking them rounds in. It's all about walking them rounds in. Anyways, uh, I think those things, and an injury I had in boot camp, that's messed me up over the years.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the martial arts training I did when I was younger too, probably as well. That'll do it.
Yeah.
Um, but let's keep moving, man. Let's keep moving. Let's
Okay.
see. We got CNN. They actually wrote this in their opinion piece. We thank soldiers for the service because they devote themselves to protecting our freedoms, and we should. But we should also thank the media for the same reasons, especially when the stakes have never been higher.
God.
And then old Grandpa Rick. Don't break your arm jerking yourself off there, Morty.
I swear to God, if you could make a room, if you could build an airproof room where journalists could go inside of it and just sniff their own farts all day, you could be a millionaire.
They're not journalists, though, man. You know that.
Well, yeah, I know, but
They're
quotations,
propagandists,
yeah.
activists.
But
Freaking, they called Andy No the other day. They called him an activist. And it's like, what policies, what, what is he advocating for other than, get rid of Antifa? And he doesn't really advocate for that. He just covers what they are.
mm,
I mean,
it's weird we have a group of people like journalists that just can like give themselves accolades like they do. Like they can just print a paper like, oh, by the way, we're the shit, we're the greatest thing to ever happen to the planet, and we're totally not full of shit, and we're just expected to take it serious.
well, I mean, I think our news is more real and we're reading memes. That's all I'm saying.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next. The COVID vaccine should be tested on politicians and bureaucrats. If they survive, the vaccine is safe. If they don't survive, our country is safe. Brilliant solution. Brilliant. I love it.
Mm.
Just remember, in 1968, we pushed a swine flu vaccine. I'm already slurring my words. I haven't even finished half my beer. Swine flu vaccine, 1968. Look it up if you haven't seen it already. I mean, these freaking people. All right, we got two more. And then we can get into environmentalism here. So, the old Anakin versus Obi-Wan battle. By the way, the best of the worst prequels. The prequels suck. Sorry, guys, if you like them, you're dumb. The only good Star Wars were the original ones. And maybe I like Rogue One. It's pretty good. And I'm down with Mandalorian as well. Mandalorian's cool. Anyways, skateboard. You underestimate my power. Don't try it.
Oh God. The old Rittenhouse.
I have some more Rittenhouse memes, but I don't want to get too spicy.
Oh my god.
So
Yeah, I've seen some pretty good ones. Yeah, but we probably shouldn't. If we're gonna put this on YouTube, probably shouldn't put them up. But you see,
I saw somebody.
did you see where Destiny got departnered from Twitch because he? I don't know if he defended Rittenhouse or was he defended, or he said that the riots are bad. One of the two, something similar to that, and he got departnered from Twitch over it.
That's stupid. I've never really followed Destiny, although when he was doing kind of like hosting debates for a while, I would watch now and again. But yeah, I don't really follow him in general.
Yeah, now he's been called a fascist.
Yeah, well, he had that whole debate with Voldemort, and you know, I mean, that's a guy. I don't know. I shouldn't say things that I'm like. That's a guy. I want to be like, dude, do you want to wrestle? Because I'm pretty sure looking at you, you're a lot bigger than me, and I just want you to understand what I won't hurt him, not for real. I just want him to know how close he could be to being hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I can't stand that kind of smugness out of people. But and if you don't know who Voldemort is, well, you figure it out. Figure it out. All right. He's a neckbeard. I'll put it that way. And lastly, but not least, most importantly, not least, AOC in her infinite wisdom. She's been way too quiet lately, by the way. I need someone to make fun of, and AOC, please come back. Please come back and say more stupid stuff like you used to. She's probably worried about re-election more than anything.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
probably why she's been quiet. But we only have 10 years left, so we do need AOC's wisdom. We only have 10 years left before the entire planet blows up. AOC, come back, please.
Maybe she'll go on Joe Rogan.
Joe would probably have her on.
He would, yeah.
I know. And Joe would probably finally be like, yeah, I am talking to an idiot. No, I was trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. Anyways, these poor buffaloes can't fly anymore because people keep eating their wings. And that face, man. That face. All right, guys, that was the Memecast news. Play that thing there, Tank. That thing, the thing.
And that has been Memecast news.
All right, another 30 minutes wasted.
You'll never get that 30 minutes back either.
Yeah. No one's in our chat once again. You guys suck. It's not us.
You non-existent people suck.
There's no way it's me. There's no way it's Tank and all of his great technical skills.
We all have our talents, right?
Yes. So, you brought this up a few weeks back. I think we got Yiz on. We didn't talk about it. Oh no, we went with simping the other week, and that video went awful because poor sound, and
which is a shame because that's probably the most important topic of our generation. But yeah,
whatever. I mean, I'm sure we'll bring it up again. I'm sure we'll have a guest on at some point that talks about it. Speaking of which, guys, next week we're working on Kiza GT. That is the man who often works with Yiz and the British Knight. We are looking at getting him on next week or something like that, and we may have to change because he is a nice English chap, and we might have to change our times to fit the 5-hour time zone difference. But look forward to that. Anyways, Tank, environmentalism. What you got to say?
So I kind of want to do this topic because I actually consider myself to be an environmentalist, although I come from a very different school of thought than, what we consider mainstream environmentalism. So I kind of want to get into, I guess, like what we think environmentalism means, and maybe talk about some environmentalist um, that I draw some influence from, or I think's kind of interesting, and just kind of how I don't necessarily want to say right wing environmentalism, but not non mainstream environmentalism and how it differs from the mainstream in a lot of different ways. Um, Spoiler, it's going to be a lot different. But I guess kind of get started. Maybe we should talk about what do you think environmentalism is, and what does it mean in 2020 or whatever.
What do you want, a serious answer or a Mimi answer?
Answer... either one's fine, really. It's all the same shit at this point.
No, the Mimi answer is just a bunch of crazy people that have no freaking clue what they're talking about, and essentially would like to kill the majority of the world in order to save Mother Earth, and yada yada yada. The reality is, though, is everyone, especially people on the right, understand the environment's important. And I'm a firm believer of this because I'm a student of history and economics, that it's only profitable, or not even, I shouldn't say profitable, but it's only possible when a society reaches a certain level of economic wealth to worry about the environment. Otherwise, you're just worried about survival. And I think that a lot of supposed right wing environmentalism is way better than the left wing version. And for instance, as the old trope goes, the meme that would be, you don't have any extinct chickens or cows. It's because we farm them, and we know that that works, versus poaching. And left wingers just want to stop poaching, which is impossible. However, if you farm an animal, you can continue their lineage. I think there's a lot of problems with endangered species. We believe, according to science, I've never done too much reading into this, but that something like 99% of all species that have ever existed no longer exist. So that's a natural thing of entropy. That is a universal law, by the way, people. Entropy is happening to all of us. We are all going to die.
Speaking of which, the entropy stream is up if anyone wants to check it out over there.
If I donate to entropy, does that mean that do I have to split that with you, or do I get to keep that money?
You can just keep it. It's fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, to me, environmentalism, though, generally speaking, without going off into the weeds, because we will do that soon,
right,
is just the idea of keeping things like nice, and keeping the wildlife sustainable, and terraforming your natural habitat. This is an animal thing to do as a human animal. Beavers, they change their terrain, they manipulate their environment. We do that too. So I think that's all it is. It's learning to work within nature and to do as little harm as possible, but not to be some crazy idiot where you're going to you're going to be Greenpeace or something like that.
Right.
Anyways, what do you got?
No, I feel like the same way. I guess to start out, one of the main differences between, I don't want to say right wing because it's really not necessarily right wing, but
it's conservative, though. Conservative. Remember, people, the word conservative literally means to conserve, to keep.
Well, I'll say non-progressive environmentalism is that. Let me back up. So there's a guy by the name of Chad A. Haig who got a master's in philosophy in the United States and then said, wow, student loans are really stupid. I'm going to get out of here and move to southern India, where basically he uses 3 gallons of water a day and lives an environmentalist lifestyle. And he wrote a book, and he is the founder of this philosophy called the philosophy of peak oil or peak oil philosophy. And basically, what peak oil philosophy, I'm going to butcher it because it's super into symbols and stuff, but without getting too deep into the jargon of philosophy, basically he says that oil represents, it's a symbol, and it represents never-ending progress, because it's because of oil that you can go to, the Arizona desert, to someone's house, and turn on the tap and water will come out. It's something we kind of take for granted. And basically he says that oil isn't going to be around forever, and or it will be around forever, but it's going to get more and more expensive to get out of the ground, to the point that eventually you're not going to be able to get it out of the ground. It's going to be too far down there or whatever. And currently, right now, we do not have an energy source that can compete with oil. Solar, all that stuff has to have oil within its logistics. It cannot exist without oil as it stands now. So what we're dealing with is a series of limitation. And that limitation extends to every part of society. So our desire to, not necessarily our desire, but the progressive desire to keep our system becoming more and more complex and rely more and more on technology is unsustainable in itself, and it can't exist. It's a squared circle. It cannot exist forever anyway. So I think a lot of like non-mainstream environmentalism kind of comes from this concept of we can't keep going in the direction we're going and maintain the lifestyle that we're living. It's impossible. So we have to think about what that's going to mean. And a lot of times that means we kind of have to go back to a more historical way of living than where we're at now, with technology being everywhere.
I don't know. I don't know that peak oil's real. They've been predicting peak oil for a very long time. So if anyone doesn't know just briefly what peak oil is, that's the idea that, kind of like what Tank just said, that we're going to run out of oil or not be able to extract it after a time. But the reason why I say that is that oil to me seems to be a self-regenerating type process of biomatter that gets condensed and turned into oil. But even if it's the case that peak oil would hit, I think we're probably a long way from that. And I think that the general push to use cleaner energies in general, excuse me, the market will provide. So Bjorn Lomborg has done a very great series of investigations on this, and he actually has a video. I can't remember the name of the documentary, with alternative sources of energy, and some of them are bioenergy, if I'm not mistaken, where they come from like uh cells, cellular structure that produces energy, and they have to learn how to store it in batteries and whatnot. It's been a while. I actually briefly brought him up on All Minus One today, but I forgot his couldn't remember his name correctly, because that happens when you have so much stuff in your noggin. Sometimes you can't access it. It's like when your computer starts to freeze up because you don't have enough disk space. I run into that quite a bit. In any case, so I don't know that peak oil is really an issue. I know it's a scare tactic. I know that the same with CO2 and carbon emissions, that it's a scare tactic, but it in a lot of ways it's cleaner than other things that people use in third world countries, like dung, to heat their food or whatever else. Um, there's a lot of stuff within environmentalism that's really crazy, like the whole cow fart thing, and there's a lot of fake science behind that. Well, I mean, my wife is an animal activist, animal lover. Works for a pretty big nonprofit in that field. Um, at the same time, I've talked to her about things. She has a certificate in animal advocacy, and I'm like, yeah, but some of that stuff you've learned is propaganda. It's not true. I mean, she's showing me stuff in books and whatever. She's like, no, I think it really is. But that's how the academics get in there and get people thinking things. I would talk about, say, the idea that Thomas Malthus talked about overpopulation. Well, that ideology is just ridiculous for several reasons. One, it doesn't address changing technologies to adjust for that rising population. It doesn't adjust for the aspect of human capital and having more people, more heads to present more solutions, also creating more wealth. And it doesn't address the late Rosling's argument, which his arguments, if you don't know who Hans Rosling is, he was I think he was an economist. I think he was a sociologist. In any case, he was a guy who studied the expansion of the Earth's population. And what seemed to be the case is that as people get wealthier, they breed less, they have less children. They start, on average, have 2 children. And they believe that we'll hit a cap at about 12 billion people, and then there'll just be a normal repopulation. So people will die off and they'll be repopulated, and then they'll die off and they'll be repopulated. And so that cap will just remain. So, like I said, there's a lot of stuff there that I just threw out, but I think the first thing we have to ask is are our assumptions correct that oil is the only answer? You know, are there not other people looking for other sources? Here's another thing I addressed. What in the hell is wrong with using nuclear power? Like, we want to talk about carbon emissions, all that kind of stuff. We could reduce our fuel consumption largely if we went more nuclear. But we're not allowed to do that anymore, not since the 1970s. Now, I lived in Maryland most of my life. I was actually stationed in Maryland briefly as a Marine. And my girlfriend went to a private college over on the eastern shore of Maryland. And in order to get there, I had to drive through Calvert County, which has a nuclear power plant. You can see it from the road. In fact, we used it on occasion as a shooting range, if they would allow us, because they had a shooting range down there for the police, interestingly enough. So my point is that we have some of these facilities in the US, but we're not allowed to do it anymore because of left-wing activism. And what worries me with the environmental argument is why or who is dictating it. When someone like Bjorn Lomborg, who's a very reasonable gentleman, goes to the left and says, well, these are the solutions, and they go, no, no, it's not, that's not good enough. No, no, has to be wind, has to be solar, has to be this, has to be that. You're killing the planet. I mean, again, we only have 10 years, man. So I'll be 50, so that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, at least I made it halfway through.
I definitely don't think that, but just kind of talk about this peak oil, and I'm not sure that I'm convinced on it completely, but I do think it's interesting to talk about. So one of the ways, so there's this other environmental thinker by the name of John Michael Greer, who I do not know a lot about, other than he's kind of a right-wingish environmental guy. I think he writes for this magazine called Arch Druid or something. But his theory is that we've actually already reached peak oil, and the way he justifies that is by how many barrels of oil it takes to get a barrel of oil out of the ground, because the machinery it takes to pull the oil out of the ground requires oil. So basically, it used to be, I forget exactly what the ratio is, but it used to be like 1 barrel would get 20 barrels of oil out of the ground. And now it's like 1 barrel will get 5 barrels of oil out of the ground. Now, you're right. It probably would, replenish itself if we stopped fucking with it so much. But
yeah, it has to get a long enough timeline.
Yeah.
But we also don't know, like, all the spots where there might
Right.
be oil.
yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. We could definitely find some oil. I'm not gonna sit here and say that we've definitely tapped out the entire. I don't think we'll ever tap out the entire resource, but I do think that the possibility exists that it could become too expensive to get it out.
Yeah, that's legitimate. I mean, there's an interesting thing though too. It's like, again, I'm doing a caricature of the left, but like
Right.
they talk about like water and the water cycle. They have so many misnomers about
Mhm.
stuff. They don't understand, like, they all want to go vegan. They don't understand that veganism actually kills more animals than just regular farming, all kinds of stuff. that it takes more water to produce crops than it does for animals. And of course, the Earth has a natural water cycle. I've argued with people in the past about all this, but they don't understand how much water is underneath the ground. And something that's interesting that people miss often in the biblical narrative of the flood is that there are debates, literal debates with people that will talk about, well, scientifically, if the Earth rained that much, then the what was it? The thermal heat from the water falling would boil everything alive, and da da da. It's like, but the Bible says it didn't rain that much. What the Bible says is that the Earth split open, and the water came from out underneath the Earth. And we know if you go anywhere, and you build a house out in the middle of nowhere, like I want to do, you're gonna have to build a well, and it's actually relatively easy to find well water. I mean, relatively. So again, like that's kind of my thing. Like we don't know what's under the ice sheet of Antarctica, for instance. I mean, other than aliens, we know aliens are there, but I've seen them fly out of the crack.
Yeah.
But
yeah, but a lot of these guys on the non-mainstream environmentalist side, basically, they're arguing that oil may not be viable forever. And currently, we do not have a technology that is completely independent of oil. Every email we send has a carbon footprint that's relied on fossil fuels. So we've kind of fallen, they argue, or Chad A. Hogg argues that we've kind of fallen into this false sense of security where everything's taken care of and we're good to go and we can just keep consuming at the rate that we've been consuming since the industrial age and everything's going to be fine. To kind of expand on what he's saying a little bit from my own point of view, you take something as simple, or if you look at like progressivism, this idea that we're going to keep moving forward as a society. We don't think that really has a ecological impact, but when we realize that literally every single thing we do relies on fossil fuels, and then you think, okay, we're going to expand pronouns. So we're going to allow everyone to change their pronouns, and we're going to add more pronouns to our vocabulary. Now you have tons of legal documents that have to have a lot more ink. It's got to be printed. It's got to be faxed. It's got to be emailed. All these different things that's going to go into the bureaucracy to keep up this one little legislation or one little progressive concept we have that now has an ecological impact. And that,
Tank,
now,
are you saying the 72 genders has a high carbon footprint? Are you saying that that's causing global warming?
I don't know how.
Is that what you're saying?
I don't know how high it is, but I'm saying it does have an ecological impact, and it's something that we don't think about.
What doesn't?
That's the thing, is everything does, but we don't live our lives like everything is the ecological impact. People think if they just buy something that's green, then their endless consumerism is fine.
There's nothing green that isn't. A lot of the green products. Well, for instance, and I don't know, it's a right-wing talking point, but for instance, the materials mined to make solar panels has a greater initial carbon imprint than what I think over time of the life of those solar panels is something like that. I've seen different data on different things. I honestly try not to get in the weeds of it because I think most of the stuff's silly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's silly because I think as technology advances, well, another reason why I think it's silly is because, I have this thing where I'm a Christian and I think Christ is going to return at some point, but let's get the religion out of it, get it aside. We'll talk purely secular. This idea that we are just stuck in this mode of technology, to me, is kind of ridiculous. Now, I have seen many things that states that technology is slowing down, the rate of growth is slowing down. However, AI is coming up. Part of the reason why technology is slowing down is maybe because IQ is lowering as well. But again, I've seen conflicting data on that. Some people say IQ is going up. It's certainly not universal globally, that is. Different nations have different rates of expansion, whatever else. What I see or what I believe will probably happen is this idea that we want cleaner environments. One of the bigger things, silver linings from the complete lockdown of Los Angeles was the eradication of smog, like overnight, like that. But that also shows you how many people are trafficking that area and how many of the environmentalists live in that area. You know, how many of those people that want the green laws and they're the most progressive want that stuff. And yet they just go about their way. You know, I have a friend, an old friend from school who complained about Trump and his what was it? His State of the Union address a few years back about having clean coal or something like that. And she's like, "Oh, clean coal," you know, being all snarky. And I'm like, yeah, you know, there's like actually scrubbers where they actually filter out a lot of the nonsense, the particles into the air. I was like, by the way, do you know what your power provider is? Because it's coal. Do
Yeah.
you live without electricity? Do you have solar power? Do you have this or that? And then she was like, "So what's your point?" And I'm like, "My point is you're a freaking hypocrite. Like literally, in the biblical sense, you're an actor. You're a pretender. You want to be outraged by stuff, and yet you still reap the benefits of it." That's always going to be my argument against anyone, unless they live like Ed Begley Jr., who has like, you know, whatever he does, the actor, if you guys don't know who that is, he's an older actor who is like some super environmentalist. Or, in my mind, how I want to live, Ted Nugent. I think Ted Nugent's a great environmentalist. I mean, dude lives off the land for his family as much as possible.
Yeah,
That's the way I see it.
I saw a guy on YouTube that had a house out in the desert in Mojave somewhere, and every drop of water he used in his house was collected via a rainwater collection system. And I'm like, that's cool. Like, this guy came up with, he's like, you know, I want to have some kind of environmental impact, so here's how I'm going to do it. Instead of, oh, well, I'm part of the recycling program, so I can just consume as much as I want to, you know?
And recycling's nonsense, unless it's aluminum. It's complete nonsense. It takes way more energy. People go study this stuff. Again, I'm no expert on this, but been aware of that for a while. So same friend, and I'm not really like, she's actually a really nice person in person, but like it's just this crazy lefty stuff that she posts. You know, I know her family, her husband, and I used to train together. I'm really good friends with her husband's brother, and all that stuff. But you know, she doesn't know how to differentiate either, though, her ideologies from herself, which I often talk about. But she mentioned that about collecting rainwater, and there are some places that have laws against this. And I'm like, this is just big state intrusion. This is nonsense. And then she tried to tell me, well, this is all over like Facebook stuff, but it's like, she's trying to tell me, no, it prevents water from going to, you know, watershed to neighboring crops and this and that, neighboring lands. And I'm like, are you insane? Like, you cannot collect that much water from rainfall. And she tried to bring up some bunk study that I debunked in 2 seconds because I know how to read studies and see if they're scientifically sound or not. It's not that difficult. All you have to do is see what their methods are and what their conclusions are. And if the conclusions are nowhere within the study or the methods don't validate any of that, it's a bunk study. It just is nonsense. But I'm like, you show me one study, and the one she showed me immediately, I was like, yeah, that's a bunk study. I'm like,
So-
you can't.
So she was arguing that collecting rainwater is bad for the environment?
Yes,
Oh my
because
God.
it keeps. Yeah, but that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about crazy leftists.
So it's
and again, I'll be your friend all day, and we can argue
right.
as long as you'll be my friend, and we can be civil. But it's like you have something up here not right. And it's not even that with her. I think it's just that she believes. She's ideologically possessed. She just believes if the left says it, then it's right. And so what's wrong up here is that she's not using that. It's just shut off. You know?
Yeah, that's really strange because so you think about, like, I'm trying to build a rainwater collection. I want to get to where I could do all my laundry with rainwater. And rainwater collection systems are not hard to build. You're just funneling what comes out of your gutter into a bucket, basically, and then you have to do some piping. But
put some barrels out.
Yeah, like it's not a big, especially if you're not drinking it. It's really easy because you don't have to worry about purifying or anything. But you know, I have trouble believing that the rainwater that I collect to wash my clothes with somehow has a bigger environmental impact than the rainwater or the water that the city collects and pipes all through the city into my house, you know.
But see, that's what it's really about.
Yeah.
That's what laws against collecting rainwater are really about. They're about you being off on your own because the government, not everyone in the government, but governments don't like you being self-supportive. You know, and I could be wrong, but I don't see it any other way. Why would you make a law in any sense? And again, like her argument was, well, because he collected that rainwater, that water couldn't go elsewhere for other people's crops and other people's stuff. And it's like, that is like, I'm not an engineer, but I'm pretty good at math. And I don't know the mathematics to do all that, the calculus you would have to do. But I'm pretty sure if you did that, if you did the calculus, you could figure that out. And that just, no, doesn't happen. No. So.
Yeah, I don't think that the rain that would fall on your roof and then goes to the ground is going to get to the, you know, farm 40 miles down the road. That seems a little much for me. But anyway, that's kind of like the difference between mainstream environmentalism or progressive environmentalism and the I don't know what you want to call it, dissident environmentalism or whatever. Their view of the future is this, you know, techno-futuristic Star Trek where everything's run off algae farts or whatever. And the dissident or right wing or whatever sees that there is a limitation to what we can do, and we have to work with inside that limitation. And in fact,
well, we see right. We see the true symbiosis.
Yeah, right. And so that's why you see a lot of guys on like, I guess, my end of the spectrum on this kind of see that, you know, it's not about legislature per se. It's not about technology. In fact, a lot of us would argue that technology and environmentalism are mutually exclusive. It's that you've got to take it upon yourself, and you've got to live a more, you know, the blasphemy is that we can't go back. And I forget who said that. I'm plagiarizing somebody, but that's the blasphemy of progressivism, is that we can't go back. And in fact, in terms of, you know, modes of production that lessen the environmental impact, we can go back. We can, you know, get more to like self-sustaining, individualistic, you know, farms and various, you know, less technology and things like that. We don't have to consume what we're consuming. And that's kind of the sin, you know, with my side, is that, you know, we're these guys that are saying they're environmentalists and they care about the planet. We're like, you can't just order shit from Amazon all day if you're going to call yourself an environmentalist.
Right. And yeah, and back to the water thing, just briefly, you know, I live near the Potomac River. It's quite close. And we get rainfall quite often. Well, look, dude, I mean, this past year here on the East Coast, we had like it literally rained for like a year and a half, 2 years straight, almost every freaking day until the summer came. And for a little while before that, it would be dry during the summer or whatever, at least in my area. But it just decided to start raining in the spring, like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And it just kept coming. It went all winter long. We didn't have heavy snowfalls. We just kept getting rain, and it rained, and it rained, and it rained. And we get flood warnings around here quite often. And I will literally have in my little like suburban backyard, I will have a small creek running through my backyard. And so to say things like, yeah, you can't collect rainwater, it's just complete lunacy. But I think that there are legislatures, and it's always Democratic legislatures, that will say, no, you can't do it, or city councils, or whatever it is, that say you can't do it because they want to control you. They don't want you to be on your own. They need you to be dependent on them. And the idea that you're bringing up too of environmentalism and what I'm saying about synergy, you live in the environment, I think is a biblical principle, and that you have a command from God in the book of Genesis to essentially be, well, one, he says you are like him, you're made in his image, and that is, I've talked about before in several ways. One is the triune being, but that aside, another is that you're a creator, and another is that you're supposed to be the master of this universe that is the earth where we live. And we are, from an evolutionary perspective, the top of the apex. We are the apex predator. We are the masters of our environment and control our environment. And when people, here's another environmental angle. When people are against things like, let's say, hunting, what happens? Well, then you get random deer running through the streets and crashing into cars and creating all kinds of havoc. You have crops being eaten. You have the problem that they have in Texas with wild hogs, where they literally just have to go out and shoot these hogs from helicopters. And who knows how much of that goes to waste.
Oh, well, I'm sure.
Like,
I'm sure most of it. Absolutely.
well, I know they eat them, but
Yeah.
often a lot of that has to go to waste. I've watched videos, man, of guys going out
Mhm.
and some of these guys do it with, because it's legal in Texas, just because it's so prevalent. They go out with night vision goggles and everything in the middle of the night, thermal goggles, I should say, not regular nods, but they go out and they'll get, in a 15-minute period, they'll kill 10 hogs. And it's something like they expect, even with that, 20% of their crops to be destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the divergence is, I think, to put it, very easily compacted concept, is that progressives think that we can conquer nature, and I think
Right.
those on the right, conservatives, whatever you want to call them, view that we live in, we're part of nature. We're just, it's something we can.
Yes.
It's not something we
Yes.
can overcome. That's not to say that nature is everything, but it is something.
Well, they also think that Native Americans were very peaceful
Yeah,
and
yeah,
warlike and
yeah.
all kinds of other stuff. That noble savage idea.
But
Yeah.
that's where you get this idea that technology is eventually going to take us to the place of transhumanism, and we're never going to have to eat, and we're going to live in this computer virtual reality, and everything's going to be
Oh,
great.
you'll eat, Tank. You'll just be recycling your poop. It'll just be a tube from your butt to your mouth.
Oh God. Ugh.
I mean, what most of them say is basically what seems to be that scenario now, I think.
And
Um,
but these guys are really, they believe wholeheartedly, almost to a religious sense, that technology is going to save you from the where we're at now. And to bring up a good friend of mine by the name of Ted Kaczynski, who is also an environmentalist, that's likely not going to be the case. In fact, it's
I know you're going to do that now. I know you're going to do it now. You said it too quick for me to start laughing before. Or he's a good friend of mine. Well, look at I can't think of his name. Goes on Rogan sometimes. Randall Carlson, that's who it is. Like, look, one big giant solar flare will EMP the entire country, the entire world back into the Stone Age overnight. Maybe not the Stone Age, but we'll still have machinery that isn't electronic, but the world will be bad. Randall Carlson talks about the extinction event that happened about 13,000 years ago. Now, that event correlates with the biblical account of the worldwide flood. That worldwide flood has something like anywhere between, depending on what you read, 400 to 1,000 accounts globally, cross culturally. People, this happened. The Grand Canyon is a result of that. Whether you believe in the God I believe in, you believe in Christ or any of that stuff, whatever, that happened. It had to have happened based on the records we have and the geological erosion that we can see. So there were still humans that survived, though. And the environmentalist types don't understand that nature is not your friend. And again, Rogan talks about this often. Go out into the woods for a while. Go out into nature. Now, you and I, we live on the East Coast. It's pretty tame. Most of nature was tamed out here. You might find some wildcats or a rattlesnake, but you can go into the woods and be relatively safe. The further north you get, you might find some brown or black bears. You're not finding freaking grizzlies. You're not finding you're not finding like real mountain lions, like way out west, or all the poisonous snakes and whatever else there is out there. So taming the environment, but living within it is what we do as a species. And that is something the environmentalists, they just don't get. Like the ultra environmentalists. I know a lot of them, they're backpackers. They hike the Appalachian Trail and all that stuff. They're they're granola type people. And a lot of them are good people. I like people like that, actually. I got a little bit of that spirit in myself. But yeah, you just can't discount that having an easier life is better. Not a perfectly easy life, because I think we're spoiled, but just having technology and an easier life is better. The fact that you and I are sitting here munching on food, because I didn't want to get too buzzed. You're eating some pepperonis. I've been eating some cheese and salami. Uh, that's pretty good. The fact that we're podcasting, that's pretty good. I'm not like the environment be damned or anything, but
Well, no, I mean, and I think that's the thing is that we've kind of, popular mainstream discourse says that basically if you're not a progressive liberal, then you can't be an environmentalist. Like that, it's inside that, and I think that's absolute bullshit. I think the dudes that you're talking about, a lot of these guys who admittedly are a little more liberal sometimes, the backpackers and a lot of these guys are, they've got it, they understand it, but we have like Chad A. Hogg again says, we live in a society that where all of our consumption is kind of an externality. So we don't really see what's going on as far as the impact of our decisions in terms of everyday life.
We're not in nature.
Right,
we're not in our natural habitat. And that goes back to your Kaczynski point.
Yeah.
And this is where I talk about, I want land. I mean, I'm looking right now. It'll probably be a while before I do this, but the house I own right now, I've always considered this was a stepping stone and probably something I'm going to keep as a rental property. And I'm looking at right now, I'm looking at land. I want to get away from society. I don't want to be where I can't go into society. I want to keep my family safe, and I want to have my life the way I want it. That's that libertarian streak that I have, that freedom. And so I'm looking at all kinds of acreage. And I was telling you right before we streamed that, I saw small acreage for me, for the things I want, 8 acres, but it backs to a national park, which would actually probably work out. And then I wouldn't have to worry about neighbors.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But also for reasonable prices, a couple hundred acres. I don't think it would be feasible for my wife and I, and unless we fell into a lot of money somehow. But I mean, there are areas where I could buy 600 acres. That's a whole square mile, which, by the way, people, a square mile is like freaking huge. And you have no idea how big a square mile is. But um, 600 acres, there are areas not developed in my state that I could get for, $1 million. It's really not a lot of money. Not for that kind,
No,
not for that amount of land.
not for something
And
that you could keep in your family for generations. Like,
right, or parcel some of it
yeah,
out, man, and let people develop on it. You know, I mean, there's so much you can do with that. Um, the When I was on vacation a few months back, I don't recall what the acreage was, but when I was on vacation a few months back, we were in a special little place in Washington State, which I'm going to leave undisclosed because I don't want anyone knowing about it. Because no, I mean my wife and I, it'd be great vacation rental or not rental. We would rent it out, but vacation investment spot. And out in the middle of nowhere, but a beautiful area, right on the beach. And the guy that developed it, I think, bought the land for like $3 million. And I'm like looking at it, and the property management, that the whole team, everything's like encapsulated. They design your home. They're not all carbon copies. They do all the landscaping. They furnish it. You just got to buy that freaking place, and then if you want to rent it out, you can rent it out. Or you can live there. They have people that live in that community, and that's awesome. And that's the kind of stuff I like about capitalism. But my whole point is that yeah, you have a giant plot of land. I don't intend to be a farmer or anything, but
well, you don't
I
have
mean,
to. I mean, you don't even have to farm that much. Think if you have
right,
20 chickens. You have 20 chickens. They produce an egg at their peak every other day or so. Like that's a good amount of food if you're willing to eat eggs a lot.
Well, I mean, my
yeah.
wife has family up in upstate New York that where she's from. That yeah, they live in the mountains. They live in the Appalachians. Beautiful scenery, and they have a couple chickens right out back. They have a little pool. You can swim in the pool. Go look out into the beauty of the mountains. And I mean, or actually, I guess that's the I don't know, in that area. Is that the Adirondacks? Adirondacks? That might be, but either way, um, y- you know, I yeah, I'm kind of tired of this. Like I used to think of myself when I was young as being kind of a city person, even
Yeah.
though I didn't grow up in a huge town. I mean, it wasn't small, but it wasn't huge. Uh, and I kind of like the idea of city life. I considered going to school. I wanted to kind of go to NYU because I wanted to go to film school, and they had a really good film school at the time. Of course, I'm a knucklehead, didn't do my homework, um, and still made straight A's on all my tests, even though I never studied. But I never took my SATs because I knew I was going in the Marine Corps, and never went after any of that stuff. But my point is, I kind of wanted to live that lifestyle. And a lot of people fantasize about, ooh, the city, and that's all this progressive mindset. And the older I get, the more I just want to get back to nature, man. I miss it. I miss in the military time, guys used to complain to me constantly about being in the field. In the infantry, you get to go camp quite often, and you go run exercises, you do land nav, you go shoot at ranges, you go do whatever. But basically, you don't shower for a couple of days, and you live out in the woods. Well, I always loved it, and I'm a pretty clean guy. I don't like being dirty, but it's like, fine. You know, when I was in Iraq, we were there first wave of the war. I was, not showered for over 60 days. I always forget how long it was, but I know it was over 60. It was probably closer to 70 before we went back towards southern Iraq where they had some stuff set up and I finally got a shower. But guys were making makeshift showers and trying to do all kinds of stuff to keep themselves clean. Not this guy. Not this guy. You know why? Because once I was dirty, I was like, screw it. I'm embracing the suck. I'm embracing the dirt.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel it. I didn't feel grimy after a
Right.
while. you know, there's just like there's a certain amount of luxury that we have that people don't even understand, and that's why you get that crazy left wing environmentalism. You
Yeah,
know,
I think that's kind of part of it is leftists or and liberals or whatever. They really love the cities. They're really big on that lifestyle.
comfort,
Yeah,
comfort. That's why they want socialism, because they
yeah.
think socialism. They want everyone to have, you know, luxury apartments and all the best furniture and all the best clothes through socialism. That's because you're stupid.
but but and I think that's really the biggest divide in our country is the between and I didn't grow up completely rural, but I was in a small town that was, you know, it was close to farms. Like it was not I was in high school with farm boys. Like it was not completely
Right.
out, you know, my high school my high school was actually right across the street from a cow farm and it smelled like shit all the time. Uh but I myself was not in the rural area completely. But
Man, I just real quick on that. I rented a place out for a couple years. It was a really nice place. I had roommates. I rented a room in this place, this great house. I mean, we had a pool table. We had a couple different lounge areas backed up to a farm. There's a meat shop behind it. In any case, so it's kind of like on the border of Maryland and Pennsylvania, and you could see the mountains in the background because where I live at, still where I live at, basically geographically is in a valley, but beautiful mornings, sunrises, all that stuff, sunsets.
right.
Um, but one year they decided to fertilize with pig manure, and that was like in the house for 2 or 3 weeks, and you could almost taste it. After that, I understood with all the guys I used to work with that lived on farms or grew up on farms around in the area, why they would talk about how cow manure was sweet compared to because pig manure is something foul, man, something totally gross. Anyways, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just to throw that caveat out there,
Yeah.
people. If you don't know, if you don't grow up in a rural area, because my area is definitely rural,
Yeah.
but it's not. It's also quite suburban, and
Mm.
you know, I mean, I grew up in a town of like 55, 60,000 people, so it's not like tiny at all, but it's just not.
Yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at now. You know, I just bought a house, and you know, just for shits and giggles, I was on some website the other day looking at renting places like Brooklyn, and for what people pay for rent in Brooklyn or the Bronx or wherever in New York is more than my house payment, and I have a quarter acre land, which isn't a lot, but I have a yard. I could have chickens if I wanted to. Uh,
My wife was renting a house, a room in a house with four roommates, a little tiny house, like probably 800, maybe 1,000 square feet, right? And her room in Arlington, don't get me wrong, she was in a pretty sweet spot. Like you walked out, it was like very suburban looking, even though it was in town. You walk down the street, half a block, you were in downtown Arlington. And if traffic wasn't bad, you know, you 10, 15 minutes into DC, no problem. And downtown DC is pretty sweet. Her rent was more than my mortgage.
mm,
And my house isn't huge. It's only 1,600 square feet, but still,
yeah.
like, and you could hear your roommates. You know, you're crammed in. My house I was renting, spending $500 a month for a room in a 3,500 square foot home with two other roommates. I mean, and it was a beautiful house, and the neighbors were awesome, and my landlord went to college with all the neighbors, and you know uh they were all friends, and so it was a great environment. But Arlington, no, no, paying like $900 a month for a little tiny room, smaller than my bedroom I'm in now. You know, just
Um,
craziness.
but to kind of get back to environmentalism, so
Oh, no.
there's another environmentalist, uh, you know, kind of dissident environmentalist by the name of he's dead now, but his name's Pinty Linkola, and he is a Finnish. He was a fisherman growing up. He was born in the 30s, and he was a fisherman, and he ended up writing a lot about environmental philosophy. And you may find this surprising, but he was called a fascist, by certain other environmentalist types. So I got his book. I was interested.
Wait. Did he not agree
No,
with their perspective?
he does not agree actually, and it's really funny because
So he didn't agree. So he was a fascist, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's been called a fascist, but he wrote a book. He wrote several books, but the main book that I'm familiar with is called "Can Life Prevail?" And it's basically talking about the oncoming disaster of environmentalism. One thing that really made a lot of people pissed off is that he was anti-immigration because he said that you're not going to be able to sustain ecological systems if you're constantly letting in immigrants from different countries. He came up with this concept of lifeboat environmentalism, which is if a ship sinks and you're in a lifeboat, it can only hold so many people. So if someone was trying to get into the lifeboat after it's reached its capacity, then the ethical thing to do would be to grab the axe and start chopping at arms. So it's a very, it's harsh, but I got his book, and his first chapter would probably actually make your libertarian heart sing, because he's talking about the major problems with the world.
I'm a classical liberal, Tank. Classical liberal. I reject that libertarian. I say libertarian on occasion, but I honestly, after seeing some years ago the libertarians being fools, as far as the big L, I people are like big L or little L. Like, look, the other thing is libertarians are often immediately associated with ANCAPs.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of being an ANCAP. It's utopian.
Right.
It's not going to happen. So I don't want to be associated with that. So classical liberal it is. That's what I decided some time ago. And the word, by the way, libertarian was coined to take back the idea of classical liberal. Libertarian originally meant libertine. And I remember way back in like 2006 or something, my dad being a minister, I told him I was libertarian politically. And he's like, oh my goodness, you're a libertarian? And he thought I was saying I was a libertine, and libertines is like the story of Dorian Gray. Anyways, I digress. You go on.
Okay.
I'm sorry, brother.
So this guy, I was like, I'm gonna check this guy's book out, and I expected it to be pretty, spicy, but his first chapter was just all about how. So he grew up as a fisherman in the 1930s, and he was saying, when he was young, he would pour me some more scotch. Hold on, my fiance just came in and stole my scotch. Pour me a little bit more. So he grew up as
what are you doing, Tank? Women can't drink scotch. Get the hell out of here.
She loves it. But so he grew up in a fisherman in the 1930s, and he said when he was young, as a fisherman, he would go out in his little boat. He had like a rowboat. It wasn't even anything special. He would catch fish, and he would come back, and he would take the fish that he caught, and he put it in a cardboard box, and he would bike it to the market. Okay. Well, then later, as he grew up, they started passing all these environmental laws or public safety laws that said, oh, you can't transport fish from the lake or the ocean, I guess, to the market unless it's in a refrigerated truck. So now something that took just normal bicycle power now had to have gasoline and propylene glycol in its logistics.
That's good stuff. You should drink like that. No, don't listen to me, kids. Don't drink. That's ethylene glycol, I'm thinking, but yeah.
So now this system that was completely, green energy, for lack of a better term, required no fossil fuels, now requires not only, gasoline and propylene glycol and refrigerants and all kinds of other things to do something that people's been doing forever, but now it requires a committee to oversee it and all this other, complex actions to make sure that something's been doing for 1,000 years now needs this extra layer of oversight due to a progressive mindset ultimately.
Well, but the progressive mindset is all about control.
Well, yeah, for sure. It's about making rules. Yeah.
It's not just about making rules. It's an elitist mindset. I know better than you. Therefore, you do what I say. Speaking of which, look, we have our little partnership here. We have a little show that nobody watches. How much instruction do I give you generally?
Not as much as you should.
Right. Okay. I let you, but that's the way I am, man.
Yeah.
I let you off in the weeds and do your own thing. Now, if you were doing stuff that I didn't like or I really needed you to do, I would tell you. And sometimes I do tell you. Sometimes I'm like, look, this is how I need you to do this. This is how I want you to do this. This is my baby, guys. So, but Tank was very willing to take this on, and I really absolutely appreciate everything he does because I want to build something, and was very fortunate to have him connected with me because he's a very, obviously, as you can tell, smart guy, despite him saying he's a dumb redneck all the time. I mean, I know you're a redneck, but sometimes, look, man, one of my favorite guys I used to work with, Ted, if you ever see this.
Ted Kaczynski?
No, not Ted Kaczynski. I won't give away his last name, but Ted was as redneck as you could get, and he was one of the smartest guys I've ever known in my life. Very well read, very intelligent. With that, I need to take a pee, man.
Go ahead.
It's 8:30. This is the traditional time to break. If you want to keep talking, I can probably hear you unless you have to go yourself.
Yeah, I could stand to pee myself. We'll take a little break and then we'll come back.
All right, guys. Be right back. I read it back first, just so anyone knows. Tank he just takes forever, and I know I'm talking over the music right now, but I mean, here he comes. I see a shadow. I see a shadow. He's still. That might have been a ghost. What's going on here? Now he's hitting some keys. Oh, wait. Did he turn us back on?
Okay, I'm back.
I have no clue. Man, that took you forever.
Man, I get shy sometimes.
You had me muted because I was talking so much trash.
I did not have you muted.
Good.
So anyway, this guy Penty Linkle, he says, well, let me back up a little bit. So humans throughout history lived environmental on their own because we didn't have industrial society. So
right.
Without industrial society, environmentalism isn't a thing because there's no reason to come up with that concept. So the Industrial Revolution comes and it takes over and technology rapidly grows. And then even places that where the Industrial Revolution didn't hit as hard, like Finland, where Pentti Linkola lives, up until the 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s, they were still doing things in a very old-fashioned manner. And I think the point I'm getting to here is that this progressive mindset has created so much. They've decided that, humans who lived forever doing the things that they did and survived wasn't safe enough or wasn't appropriate enough or whatever. And now we have to come up with all these new policies to make sure that, everything is being done right so that no one gets sick or no one gets hurt or no one gets their feelings hurt or whatever. But all
They
that,
gotta nerf the world, right?
yeah, but all that complexity has an environmental impact because it all requires fossil fuels to run. None of this stuff's free. It's all got an externality.
Well, it also has a human impact as far as if you nerf the world, human beings do not develop a proper character, a proper moral, spiritual character. And I think that's really the issue. So it's the anti-fragility kind of mindset, right? That we need to be tough and to live in the environment and to work with the environment and to mold the environment with our own hands is difficult. And when you go and you live in a city, well, somebody else did that. Somebody way, way, way far away. And so you and I growing up in like rural areas, whether we were directly involved, I mean, my first job technically was on a farm. So I mainly just cut grass around like the residential area, but I did do some gardening type stuff. In any case, but my point is like you and I, having been in these areas and exposed to these kind of people and whatever else, whether we're directly involved or not, we have a different perspective. But someone in a city just doesn't understand. They just don't know. It's like I see Tim Pool kind of mock like the far left often about this. They're like, oh no, I'll just, everything, all the supply chains just shut down and everything because of COVID or whatever else. And they're just like, oh no, I'll just go to the store and get it. It's like, dude, you realize like the store has to be supplied and there's a whole process to that. And they were talking about, well, in the beginning again of COVID, why are these farmers throwing away all their crops and stuff? Well, because there's these environmental protections. There's these certain sanctions that make them have to follow certain rules. And unless they do this in a very specific way legally, they can't sell it to you. The red tape bureaucracy. So I mentioned this the other day on All Minus One. That's too official, by the way. I mentioned it once before that, but too official. All Minus One on YouTube. Go check me out, please. Help my channel grow, guys. This is again the live show. I plug this on my longer videos also. Although I was doing it at the beginning, moved it to the end now just because I just want to get to it, and I kind of feel bad shamelessly plugging myself at the beginning of things, but. In any case, yeah, I mean, I was talking, my daughter, I raised her on Mennonite mainly grass fed milk and raw milk. And I drove up to Pennsylvania about 20 minutes, like once a week or every other week, because I would freeze a lot of it. I would buy enough milk that I would have enough for a week or two, and would pay the little bit of extra money and get milk straight from the farm. And they had baby calves, right? They had newborns constantly, which was a great thing when she was a toddler, could walk and stuff, because she'd always wanted to see the baby cows. And the farmer there, his name was Martin, so I'm not giving anything a name or anything away, because like almost all Mennonites are named Martin. That's their last name. There's a couple names, Mennonite names, but that's one of them. Martin is a very, very common Mennonite last name, at least in southern south central Pennsylvania. In any case, but I lived in Maryland, and technically, I was violating the law. I was trafficking illegal raw milk into Maryland, which I could have been locked up for because I thought it was healthier and better for my daughter than the nonsense homogenated like pasteurized stuff that they sell you in the store. So pasteurization kills all of the good bacteria that's good for your gut, and then the homogenization just destroys the fatty acid profile of it. And I was like, I'm not doing this to her. I'm like, this is my kid. I'm gonna do the best I can for her. I'm gonna give her the best start I can, the best chance. And she likes milk. We're gonna go get it. We're gonna get it raw, and we're gonna do this right. And the fact that that's illegal is insane. And that became illegal because of the progressive era. And what would happen is because they had bad shipping practices, sometimes things would get exposed, whatever. But raw milk doesn't really go bad. It just ferments and it changes. In India, they let raw milk sit out like on their porch in the 100-degree weather. You know what it happens? It turns into yogurt.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
We've been fermenting things for God knows how long, and it's just a controlled rot, and not even that controlled in a lot of cases. I ferment stuff all the time. I love it. But that's kind of what we're talking about is, this is one thing I say. So if you took pretty much any human on the planet, any human in the Western world, in the industrialized world, and you dropped them off in the wilderness anywhere, they would probably die pretty quick. Yet our ancestors were able to conquer, the wilderness so well that we're here today. So that, obviously they had something figured out. And there's this progressive idea that we didn't know anything until experts in the 40s and 50s told us. Like, we were all just stupid. We threw shit at each other, and I don't know what we did. Bang sticks together. Up until the managerial revolution, which should be a different topic one day. But up until the managerial revolution, we didn't know what we were doing, and thank God these bureaucrats came along to save us and gave us certain food sanitation practices. Now, I'm not completely against food sanitation. I don't think that the Chinese restaurant down the street shouldn't have any kind of oversight, but I think we've gone overboard with it. If you can't bring fish from the lake to the market like you've been doing for 100 years, then something's wrong.
Explain to me, and I know the arguments, but that's because I read. Explain to me how the federal government has any right whatsoever to regulate those kind of things. The FDA, for instance. No, what they did is they took the interstate commerce clause during the FDR era and used that, misconstrued it from its original intent. So that's what they did. But my point is this: if a municipality wants to do this, if even a state government wants to do this, it is within their rights, although the states do have their own constitutions, and it may not be in their constitutions. I talked about this on All Minus One just Monday. Just on Monday, I brought up the debate about saturated fat because there was a recent study released in June in a major academic journal that has been completely ignored about saturated fat basically being, inert. It doesn't hurt you. It's probably good for you. So what is definitely, for sure, by science, horrible for you is polyunsaturated fatty acids. And guess what? Our government has propped up for the last 60 years. Polyunsaturated fatty acids. Amazing.
Oh my God.
As Jesse Lee Peterson would say, amazing.
Don't get me started. Don't even get me started. This, it was in like the 50s that, or I
Ansel Keys, buddy. Ansel Keys.
Yeah, they were like,
experts.
oh my God, fat. Oh my God, fat that your grandfather ate all fucking day is going to kill you. You can't eat that. You need to eat these processed carbohydrates that Kellogg made or you're going to die of heart disease. And then obesity skyrockets, and now people are going on low carb diets and reversing type 2 diabetes. And I'm about to go insane. I better stop talking about this. Anyway.
Well, that was one of the anecdotes that I gave, because I talked about my dad briefly. But I mean, again, I've done a lot of research into it, and I wavered back and forth for some years with the research, and I finally kind of figured it out. And I will always tell people, I'll always suggest to anybody, if they're really curious about the subject, a very simple and fun film to check out is called Fathead. Tom Naughton, who is a comedian. Tom Naughton's Fathead. Very, very intelligent guy, and kind of breaks down the nonsense with it. There's all kinds of stuff out there, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, for an older movie that's kind of simple, and the whole idea was he was debunking Super Size Me. Interestingly enough, I had a professor, college professor, that she was the professor of whoever's the guy that did Super Size Me. I can't think of his name, but she apparently was very close friends with him at some point. And I mentioned, this was in an online class, don't get me wrong, but I mentioned, I was like, no, that movie's nonsense. She's like, no, it wasn't. I was like, no, he lied. He didn't tell the full story. She's like, no, he wouldn't do that. I'm like, that's who I am, man. I don't care. I don't care. You can screw off, man. The truth is the truth.
Yeah. Well,
It is what it is. I'll be nice to you. Don't get me wrong, but like, I'm not going to hold back. Like, propaganda is propaganda, and you can believe whatever, but what the reality is that movie Super Size Me was very, very much doctored.
Oh, I'm sure.
And,
and I'm not even about to say that fast food's good for you by any stretch of the imagination. You probably
no, me neither.
Yeah, anything if you can avoid processed food, that's great. But that was about like, oh, I used to be vegan, and then now I started eating Big Macs, and I'm about to die.
Yeah,
I don't buy that either. Yeah, I don't buy that either.
Direction, say McDonald's.
Yeah, look, man, I've been eating McDonald's for a long time, but not so much anymore. But I definitely got around. So it is what it is. But and that's the reason why I pretty much just call myself anti-science at this point. It's like, you guys spent 50 years or more telling us that fat was going to kill us, when if we just would have looked and said, well, I'm not going to believe you because my granddad ate bacon and eggs all day, every day. He lived to be 150. Why would I believe these guys? And now,
well, here's the thing, though, man. Here's the thing, and I have some medical training, right? Like, I'm no expert, whatever, but I also have a pretty good brain. It's not the best, but pretty good, And the stuff that they teach you, though, if you understand basic molecular biology, basic biochemistry stuff, and then you hear the other aspect of it, oh, well, saturated fat's bad for you. It's like, it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense on that basic level. But what it is that, and this is what I talked about in my video on Monday. So we're getting close to the end. So all minus one, people. All minus one on YouTube. Check us out. Yeah. In any case, these people are just following an ideology, and it's kind of this mindset. It's this herd mentality. People want to blend in. They're afraid to be different in individuals. And here's the thing one thing that I know from all of my life, and I've never been perfect about this, but one thing is I've certainly been an individual. I've always been myself. And because of that, I've gotten respect for people for being just myself and not blending in and whatever else. And I've had plenty of naysayers. I've had plenty of people argue with me. I've had plenty of people think, I'm a jackass or whatever else. But I'm me. And most people aren't themselves. They truly aren't. And when we talk about this environmental stuff, what we're looking at as far as the crazy environmentalists, they just want to be part of the cool kids. They want to be part of the club. And you're talking about these practical environmentalists, and they're like, oh, no, I'm just me. Here's some reality. And those people aren't liked. I mean, look, Galileo, the sun doesn't revolve around the earth, but the earth revolves around the sun. Ooh, so amazing. Jailed for what, a year and a half, 2 years, last few years of his life. Um, guys, if I have anything to ever impart, any wisdom, it would be don't be a sheeple. It doesn't mean you could say, but Bill, you are religious. It's like, yeah, in my own faith. I don't believe in institutional religion in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't mean I won't go to an institutionalized church, but I'm not going to be a part of that church. I'm not going to join it. And I'm not crapping on anyone who does either. I'm just saying, you have to understand that I believe in collective. As a species, we are a collective. But the individual is the most important. And the real hard issues is how do we weigh the collective versus the individual? But I don't think that we can I just don't think that we can say, well, just because everyone, the mob that is against you, that you are wrong. And that's why I named my channel All Minus One off of John Stuart Mill's essay. The full treatise is called On Liberty, but that particular essay is called All Minus One. In any case, sorry, Tank, for the rant. I'll let you have some thoughts here because it's getting down to closing time.
Okay, so I guess I'll just kind of end on this note. We're talking about diet and stuff. I think one of the biggest tales that the mainstream environmentalist movement is full of shit is that you'll see a lot of these vegan guys, right, that are, oh, veganism is going to save the planet. Okay. Well, as we both know, veganism is eating plants. Well, you notice that statement doesn't have any qualifiers. Like, you can just, as long as you're eating plants, you're good for the environment. Well, in case anyone wasn't aware, avocados don't grow in Wisconsin. So if you're going down the street to the local beef farmer and instead buying avocados ripe off the shelf in Wisconsin, then you're probably not helping out the environment at all. In fact, you're probably doing the exact opposite. It doesn't matter if you're vegan or not.
You should look, speaking of avocados, you should look into the environmental cost of just growing one single avocado and avocado
I'm sure it's
trees.
god awful. Oh yeah, I'm sure it's god awful.
Dude, no, they take like 20 years to produce the fruit.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. The amount of water and nutrients that they require and everything. It's insane. You would be surprised. Google it. When we get off stream, Google it.
Almonds are pretty bad too, and it's bad because I love both avocados and almonds, but they are awful. Like it's one thing Pentia Linkola says is these people that are talking about going vegetarian or vegan to solve the environment. He's like, not plants don't grow everywhere, but grass or like edible plants don't grow everywhere, but grass does, and cattle is this fantastic machine that turns grass into edible food for humans. So why in the world would you ever be vegetarian or vegan if you want to help the environment?
Well, and you know what cattle and other grazing animals actually do is they take the nutrients from those plants and they make them more available to us by putting them in their own fat.
Yeah,
that's what they do. We were talking before the stream that I don't necessarily think I do the best with cows. That might depend on some things. I don't know, but I really, really, really like gamier meat, and especially like goat and lamb, or sheep. So it is what it is. I think I probably do better with buffalo as well, bison, but they also are a little bit leaner. Deer meat, of course, is awesome. Deer meat depends. Sometimes it's gamey, sometimes it's you don't even know. But in any case, man, let's leave it there.
Okay.
Unless you have any final words.
Science is stupid.
It's not that the science is stupid. It's that it's not science.
Right.
And that everyone believes it's science because democracy and all. Look, guys, science is not democratic. Science is a process of finding out the truth, and it's a finding out the truth by essentially eliminating what is untrue. It's a series of measurements, if you would. And much of what you think is science is politicized. But with all that said, and the environment, this has been the ends justify the memes. And remember, the ends always justify those memes. Play that outro, Tank.
I'm talking about all the way to the top, yeah. Unjustifiably in a position that I'd rather not be in, but the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah. Macho madness, yeah, it's got more to offer than President Jack Tunney thinks that I got, yeah. Now, let me tell you something right now. Cards stacked against the Macho Man Randy Savage in WrestleMania 3. Yeah, let me say it, yeah. Let me say it out loud. And let me point to the president of the World Wrestling Federation. The Macho Man Randy Savage is not happy with your decision, yeah.